Hey, I'm Don Carr, and this is another episode of What's on Your Pedalboard, and today I'm here with Daniel Fisher.
Hey.
What's happening, Daniel?
How you doing?
Good, man.
Welcome to my pedalboard.
Yeah, here it is, right? On the table.
Yeah, they asked me to do my pedalboard, and I was very happy to do it. I have so many versions, and honestly, I just don't use a pedalboard because, one, I'm constantly switching what I'm using depending on the situation, and two, I work the knobs in real time most of the time, so all of it's usually on a table.
Yeah, oh, right. So it's got to be up where you can get to it. That's
Yep.
the whole point, because you're actually working the knobs as you play. Again, another whole workflow situation. This is one of the things we've talked about, even in the few episodes we've had already, is just what makes sense for your workflow, right? And clearly, this is yours.
This is it. And, if I had a gig where I did the same thing over and over, I would eventually build this into a board. The board would still go up on a stand or a table, but right now it's just pretty free-flowing. I have many variations of each of these things. These are ones I brought that I thought were the best examples of things and had some unique things as well.
Right, but it looks like you have, in general, it looks like you have a system, and you're just plugging in different things into that system.
Exactly.
That's kind of cool. And being a keyboard player primarily, that gives you a completely different perspective on the whole thing.
Yeah, and this particular rig, this is so here's kind of how I think about guitar for me. Clearly, I'm not a guitar player. It's very bizarre standing next to Don Carr with him not having a guitar and me wearing a guitar. Believe me. But my thing is, if we go somewhere where there's a bunch of keyboard players, I'll bring a guitar. If we go somewhere where there's a guitar player, drums and bass, then I'll bring my keys. But if I go somewhere where it's all synthesizer players and they're doing ambient stuff or some different EDM, almost every time I'm going to grab guitar. It's just a different instrument, and I think of it more as 6 oscillators that I can bend at will and that I have lots of dynamic control over. And so most of the choices are not about making rock grooves or lead solos, but about making ambience and doing very slow evolving things.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I can see, just knowing the pedals the way I know them, I can see that's exactly where you're headed with all this. So, all right, well, let's talk. Well, what do you got here, man?
So over here I start with the Keeley compressor. I really like, this is the Compressor Plus. It's the Sweetwater exclusive paint job version. But I went with this one because I've always liked the Keeley compressor. But then when they added the blend knob, that was it. Had to have it.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of blend on a compressor, on distortion. I'm sure you've seen some of my videos where I use like the exotic blender. Being able to bring dry guitar into distorted guitar or plain guitar into your compressed guitar, that is everything that you dislike about either goes away, when you can have both at the level that you want.
Right, you always get the attack and the dynamic range,
Everything.
Yeah.
And so, on this, I kind of just have it just makes the guitar more alive, And I got a kill switch too. Nice sound, I love the guitar, but it sparkles. And of course it goes longer. And so if you're doing ambient stuff, that's crucial for me. So that's my first pedal. It almost never goes off. I leave it on that setting and it's just what I want.
Right, because you want the evenness and the consistency and the sustain to do the ambient thing.
And just a little name drop, but I was at Adrian Ballew's house one weekend. He had me over to do programming for him. And he kind of let on that he never goes into anything, including modeling devices, and especially modeling devices, without having a compressor first.
Yeah, man. When he was here and we did some work in the studio with him, I noticed he had like a couple of compressors in his rig, and one of them was in a very strange spot, way late in the signal chain. And I looked back, I was looking at it was a rack even. It was like in the back of a rack, and I went, what? And I was trying to patch and figure out where it was patched. Anyway, Adrian, he's wacky, but yeah, good point.
And so I just never have that off.
Yeah.
I just like it. The next one is the Miku Stomp by Korg. Normally you can only buy it in Japan. We sold it here at Sweetwater for a while. You've probably seen, we've done at least 3 or 4 videos on this, but I don't do it just so I can sound like a Japanese anime girl. which is, you know, that's cool and all. But you put that into something like an Eventide, and what I really am going for is like, you remember on the first Blade Runner when the blimp is going by the building, right? And there's the geisha woman doing the ad, and it's just so, it's so
ethereal,
vibey,
man.
And then my next pedal is the Geiger counter by WMD or WM Devices. This basically digitizes your signal and then runs it through a map of these shapes that it assumes if you were to put a linear signal from low to high, it has like 252 different shapes that it will turn that into.
Oh, so it looks at your signal like a graph.
It looks exactly that.
And
it looks
just draws lines.
and it gives you a different graph based on it.
Yeah.
What does it sound like? Well, if you just turn it on and just wank at it, it's just not going to sound very good. What you have to do is find the exact levels that live within an area of that wavetable that you like, and then use just enough dynamic control to do that one effect. So it can't be all on, all off.
Yeah.
It's definitely a finesse thing, but when you get it, so I'll do it dry first.
Okay.
So. Now right there, I'm starving the bits, as we've talked about. If I turn that up, it'll be a more clear signal. And at any given moment, it could sound like fuzz, but there's something underneath, you know? And that's what it sounds like when you cut the sampling rate down, you get all the aliasing coming in.
Right. Well, and see, that's interesting too, because I noticed you immediately hit a chord and went for that. So it was like, that's your workflow.
Yeah,
Again,
I
why
need to
this
be
is
able
up
to
on a
reach this.
table.
Yeah, absolutely. But that into a delay, you know. And there's, like I said, there's over 250 different shapes, and it's very unruly. But once you learn to tame it, and then you have lots of different ways to shape the EQ of what's going in, and that makes different frequency bands go to different parts of that crazy wave. So, I'll enable that, right? And so, right now, the high end, you hear the high end is going through the crazy part, but now I can bring it into other areas. But usually I leave that out. I mostly play just, I find a shape that I really like, and then I cut the bits some, because I really do enjoy that fizzling. So lots to explore in that one.
Man, that's interesting, because the sound, like in that situation, the sound morphs through the entire sustain.
Absolutely, because you're traveling through different parts of what would normally be a linear curve is now, it could look like an X, it could look like a W, it could look like a squiggle. The thing about it I notice is every time I set it up and use this rig, I find that a different one of those 250 is better, you know? And so who knows what it is that changes, but I don't have I always go to 19, I always go to this. It's just every time I get to a gig, I set it all up, I find a couple numbers, and I remember those numbers.
And you go, oh yeah, 27. Today is 27.
You know, I would take too long to sit and find it, but I can do things that sound just like a DX7, you know, because there are similarities between FM splatter and this. And
right.
So I just always have that handy. The next one is the Talons by Earthquaker Devices. It's a real nice universal distortion, but it has really good EQ. It's got bass and mid and treble and presence, and then a standard level and drive.
Yeah.
And so I find I get what I want, and I get as crispy as I want. And when I back it down, you know, it.
Right, and
like
again,
that
for
one.
doing the ambient thing, you want that kind of flexibility.
And it gives me even more sustain, and just having real time EQ. This is kind of where I reach all the time for my EQs on this pedal board. Then I got the Electro Harmonics Hot Tubes Overdrive. It's a really low cost pedal. Every time, and it's so low cost that sometimes when friends go, "Oh, I like that pedal," I go, have one, right? Because I just go get another one. You know, I started doing that with certain pedals, and then the pedals,
You get a hot tube,
That's
you
right.
get a hot tube,
and then
You're
like
Oprah all
they'll
of a
stop
sudden.
making that pedal, and I'm like,
You're
"Oh, I
right.
better stop giving that pedal away." I did
funny.
that with the Pigtronics Fat Drive.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
Oh, here, have a Fat Drive. You know, and then it was like, man, I
Gotta
want to
keep
hang on to that
At
one,
least,
right?
At least keep
But
one. Right?
The hot tubes, it's. You know, I use this word, it's probably wrong because I'm not a guitarist, but to me it's just kind of like an Americana overdrive. It's kind of like the Beatles, when the Beatles were first starting to get that warm, burly kind of distortion.
Yeah.
And you can open it up. And one of the things I like about it is it can kind of tame the harshness of the Geiger counter.
Ah, interesting.
So it's one of the reasons I keep
I
it.
was getting ready to ask if you ever used either of these in conjunction
Absolutely.
with the Geiger counter.
So an example, you know, let's
Okay.
get splattery,
Yeah.
right? And then I turn on the hot tubes. This time I have the tone control on
Right.
and back down.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden I get this. And I can hold it for a really long time, and it gets pretty over time because, again, it's moving through the
Right,
different
it's moving
shapes.
through the
So-
Geiger counter.
And then I'll do that, you know, with a stereo delay. That's
so
a nice.
that's cool. That's cool. So okay, so let's to recap here.
Yeah.
We've got some compression, some tone shaping, and a little bit of gain shaping, little gain structure, and that's going into the front end of the amp, right?
And so today we're using the orange, is it the Rocket 32?
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
And the reason we use this one is because it actually has 2 stereo power amps. So we're able to do a mono send, but a stereo return, and we're miking both of those speakers. So we're in true stereo. Live, if I go out somewhere, I'll usually bring, depending on the size of where I'm playing, I have all the different small Fender amps, and I have a pair
Okay.
of, so I have a pair of the little 5Gs,
Yeah.
I got a pair of 10Gs,
Oh, okay.
15s.
So you're
you know,
scalable.
and
Yeah.
I'm scalable, and the sound that I'm making here sounds great through those. And I'm always
Yeah.
surprised at how good those sound for a small little thing that I carry with me.
Right. Well, and again, man, it's all about workflow. That's what it really gets down to. It's like what works for you. So
I've gone
okay.
there.
Right, and now we're coming back
Coming
into
back.
the loop. And where do we
So
start?
the first thing I go in, and this can be a stand-in for any, I'm going to say cheap delay, but I don't mean cheap price or anything like that, or badly built. Just a junky delay, and yet you can go through 20 different ones and find the junky delay that's exactly right for you. This is one of the ones I've fallen in love with. It's the Abominable Holy Grail. It's just an old school Bucket Brigade chip, but you have this white knob here called load that lets you put many dB in front of it and into the feedback path, and it just crunches the poor chip, and it lets me, you know, that spaceship sound people talk about.
Sure.
But I can play it with this because it doesn't.
A lot more control over it.
Yeah, and it doesn't go into that.
Yeah, right.
It stays really pretty. So I'll turn everything off except that.
Okay.
Just plain old guitar. And if you set the feedback, if you know your exact spot that'll hold it, and then set it just less than that, you know you've got this master fade that's just going to slowly back away perfectly.
Man, and that was totally controllable. Usually when you're doing the runaway effect, that's what happens. It runs away.
Right.
And that was not. That was totally in control, and you weren't like just going crazy.
Yeah,
you know.
but I actually kind of am paying a lot of attention to it.
Sure.
I'm just not doing it a lot, and that's what people always mess up with delays. They always turn knobs like they're switches. Like little tiny increments, and you got to remember, once you turn it, let it do its thing and then turn it a little bit more.
Then turn it again, sure.
But a key thing about the delay spaceship trick is knowing that every delay has certain frequencies it likes to explode on, and other frequencies that it doesn't. And so as you're speeding up and slowing down, realize that you're moving into that frequency band. So as it starts seeming like it's getting louder for no reason at all, back down on the feedback, but it's not a continuous. Don't keep turning it down.
Just turn it down a little bit
and see if that did the job. Now change your frequency again, change your delay time.
Right.
And so it's a little thing. It's not this. It's a little. Do your thing. Do a little. And if you do that right, you can let that go all the way down to almost silence and to bring it back, and it's going to bring all that noise and grunge with it. So
that's cool.
There's always going to be some kind of pedal like that on my board.
Right. An analog delay that goes into like full,
spaceship.
Full spaceship. Full psychotic spaceship.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so next is you are the champion of this pedal, man.
This is my pedal.
This is your pedal.
If there was a pedal that would be associated with me because of playing it, I would hope it would be this one, because I love this pedal. This is the Super Ego. I've made a video on the original Super Ego. I made a video on the Super Ego Plus. Go watch those, because I'll never ever touch it, everything it can do on this video here. But what it does, in the way that I use it, is it grabs whatever sound you're currently playing, and then when you play something new, it glides to that new sound.
Morphs to the new sound.
And the Super Ego Plus adds effects, and so I have a phase shifter, and one of my favorite ways of using phase shifter is an incredibly slow sweep.
Right.
And they have given me an incredibly slow sweep, which I really appreciate, and you'll hear it. It's not, it's over a period of a minute or two,
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yeah, that is slow, man.
So first I'll do it without the phase effect, so now I'm just going to have that on. And another thing, I could put a volume pedal on this.
Right.
But for some reason I don't. I'm not entirely sure why I don't. But you need volume control, because when you're going back into the power amp, that's just full on.
Right.
And so I always use my Super Ego as because you have a dry knob and an effect knob. And so I always leave the Super Ego on, and I just turn the effect off. Right. So this whole time you've been hearing the Super Ego on. But then I have complete control over my volume level, pretty wide range, and it's very smooth, and the effect is always on. And what am I talking about the effect? This, right? So if I play a new chord here, so now I'm going to do it with phase shift. and then just some stereo delay. And as you see, I don't turn that pedal off. I just turn the effects down. I'm back to dry. And next one, and so
that is your master volume. So you don't need a volume pedal because, again, workflow. Your hands are always up here anyway.
And I'll think about it someday, but it's just one more thing, you know.
Yeah, right.
And then next is and again I should say this does so many things. Watch the videos on that. The next one is the Eventide H9 Max. It does everything, you know. Someone once said it messes with the fabric of time, and that's pretty accurate. Yeah. It does everything. It does pitch shifting, and it does stuttering and pulsing and reverbs and delays, and there's a really cool new synthesizer in there.
Cool fuzz.
Fuzz, yeah, the fuzz. Yeah. It goes on and on and on and on. It's kind of my Zen pedal. I basically just turn the knob and then whatever happens.
Wherever it is, it is.
And
today it sounds like we're on reverb.
Right. I actually haven't. Yeah. So right now I'm on dark. You know, it's kind of one of those black hole. And so I don't think I have anything else on. I do not. And I've done a full video on getting to the front panel of this. I know people have used the editor and stuff, but I'm telling you, it's very quick and easy to learn how to just use these 3 buttons to get to every parameter available.
Yep.
Works great.
Yeah, the hot knob thing is
the hot knob works
easy,
great.
man.
And these XY buttons,
yeah,
you can set them to 3 different things, but you can also make them do all of the parameters.
Right.
Every button could do all the parameters.
You just got to know how to step through it
all.
And
so it's just cake, and there's never more than 10 parameters.
Yeah.
Which may seem like a lot to a guitarist, but has nothing to a keyboard
I was getting ready to say, man, keyboard player, 10 parameters. Are you kidding me?
But, you know, just a quick, you know, I'm just going to pick stuff, and I have no idea what's going to happen. So now I might bring in the Geiger counter. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
So when you hear pitches going the opposite direction, you know that's ring mod.
Right.
And man, there's so many of these. That one's always on my pedal board because, man, you can't go wrong with it.
Yeah,
and
can do anything.
And now I should mention that this is my first pedal of these that are true stereo and true stereo out. And so, we do the compressor weird effect that needs nothing before it.
Right.
Fuzz often has that same property, so it goes there. Then the Geiger counter, and then my distortions to kind of tame the Geiger counter a little into the amp, out to my delays and flanges and phasers and all that.
Right.
But then another thing for me is I always want as many pedals that do stereo to be able to be stereo.
Sure.
Even if they're in the middle of the chain.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's an awful lot of pedals out there that are mono and stereo out. Frankly, I only have space for one of those.
Yeah.
Because all these are mono, and then that can go into that one that's mono and splits the stereo. From then on, if I want that stereo effect, every pedal from then on has to be stereo and stereo out, which these are.
Yeah.
And that's why I chose them that way.
Yeah.
And the very last pedal is the Nemesis delay. It's just my current go-to stereo delay.
Man, it is such a great sounding delay.
It is.
It
and
really is. I love that delay.
It lets me get to everything I want to get to from the front panel.
Yeah.
in a way that I just reach down quickly,
Yep.
and yep, that's exactly what I wanted to do. And so,
Yep.
you know, so for example, so I got time, which is pretty obvious. But then I have mix, straight ahead, feedback, all the way into greater than 100%. But then, and this is one I really like, it has an LFO, so I can do
Yeah.
slight mod.
Right.
And my personal trick for delays is always a lot of mod, but really, really, really slow.
So it doesn't sound crazy, crazy pitchy.
So you don't get that seasick
Yeah.
underwater sound.
Yeah.
And yet, when you're in stereo, everything just moves
swirls,
around
yeah.
you.
It
And
swirls.
so the reason this one's last and not the H9 is because sometimes this does synthesizer sounds, and so I want one more ambient thing after it.
Right.
But almost always this is just going to be on a ping pong. And there's just something magic about a good ping pong. You just get away with anything and tap the tempo in real time,
Yeah.
and there's some
Yeah.
beautiful ambience.
Well, and again, it's the ambient thing, because that is that's your tempo. A lot of this other stuff is just the filtering and the sound itself. You know, that's the groove or
That's
the tempo
the groove.
or the
Yeah. And so now, you know, turning some more of it on at the same time. All right. So here's
compressor always on.
Compressor is just
Always
always on.
on.
But right now I only have the Super Ego, the H9, and the Nemesis, and that's this, you know. And the fade outs are always beautiful. you know?
Yes, and that is, man, that is guitar as non-guitar. Right? I mean, seriously, that's great, man.
Yeah, we should do that sometime.
Yeah, guitar as non-guitar. There you go.
Or making that fun, because we did a video once called "How to Make Your Guitar Not Sound Like a Guitar."
Sound like a guitar.
And
we succeeded.
We did. That was a fun
We
video. If you get a
succeeded.
chance, I think it's "How to Make Your Guitar Sound Like a Synth." That might be.
Yeah,
the
it might be that,
title
something
of
like
it.
that. Anyway.
But anyway, this is my pedal table.
Pedal table. Daniel, what's on your pedal table? I think we found out, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks so much,
Yeah.
man. I really appreciate it. It was a lot
Thank
of
you.
fun.
It was.
A lot of fun. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions about pedals in general, make sure to contact your Sweetwater sales engineer, or you can check us out online at sweetwater.com, and make sure to stay tuned for more episodes like this.